Hello again, and welcome back to our second video on the IELTS speaking course. Now, I don't know how long it's been for you since the last video, but for me, it's been about 2 minutes where I just had a drink of water and we're going to start on the next video. We'll see how we go and how many I can make in one day. So first of all, today's video will be about the main topics in part 1 that you will hear many times: your home, hometown, and what you do. Again, these are topics you probably should practice a bit because they will come up a lot. At the same time, you probably don't want to focus on them too much because it's the basic topic in part 1. It's there to get you relaxed. They're easy questions. If you make a couple of little mistakes now, we put that down to your nervousness. So don't worry too much about these topics. They're designed because they're easy questions that anybody can answer. Okay. Now, for this kind of lesson, when we go through different speaking topics and I'm practicing questions and giving different kinds of answers, what I would like you guys to do is to try answering the questions yourself. So after I've asked the question, I will leave a pause for you to put your answer in. Now, if I speak too soon before you finish your answer, you can always pause the video. But I'll leave you about 10 seconds or 5 to 10 seconds, depending on the question. What I also recommend at this point is that you get a tape recorder. You get your phone. Most phones will have a recorder on it. So record your answer and then listen to that compared to my answer. Now, normally when we listen back to our own answers the first time, we'll be like, oh, my voice sounds terrible. Oh, that's an awful thing. But that's good for you. Reflecting and thinking about how well or badly you did is a very important part of improving your language skills. If you never listen to your own answers, you sometimes don't know what you're doing wrong. So while you're watching this video, go get your phone, get a tape recorder application on your phone and record your answers. Okay, and that's how we're going to work through a lot of our lessons. Sometimes I'll just be giving you advice, but for lessons like today, it's a lot of me asking, you speaking, and then me giving a sample answer. Okay, so first of all, the topic of home. Now, the topic of home, let me take that back. The IELTS examiners have different folders, and different folders will have different questions. So even though they'll have a set of 4 or 5 questions in that folder, they might not have the same questions as a different examiner. There's actually a larger set of questions. Okay, so this is just some of the possible questions you will get in the topic of home. Now, another thing I should always say is the topic of home in English means where you live, the place you are staying, that you sleep every night. It does not mean your family. Now, the reason I say that is because many Chinese students confuse the two, because in Chinese, I know the character jia can mean family or home. So you often see that as one word. Now, of course, we often do live with our family, but that's not the topic. It's not who we live with. That could be one of the questions, but the topic is about where you live, the home you live in. Another common problem is the difference between a house and an apartment. Now, this is something you probably learned when you're a little kid, but maybe you've forgotten. A house is a single building. One door, one family lives there. Maybe they cut the house in half and 2 families live there. But it's its own building, usually 1 or 2 stories high, 1 or 2 floors, with 3 or 4 bedrooms and a garden. And that's your home. You live there. You have the house. It's your home with your garden. An apartment is a very, very, very tall building with many, many homes in the apartment. Okay, so that's just something worth thinking about because a lot of students have forgotten that or don't know the difference because most people in China live in an apartment and might just call it your house. So what kind of home do you live in? So again, I live in a 3-bedroom apartment. That would be an okay answer. You can add a little bit of information. So what kind of home do you live in? Wonderful answer. Not you. That was terrible. Anyway, so Again, you could add a little bit more information than me. You might say, oh, I live in a very large, modern, two-bedroom apartment in the city center. And that would be more than enough. That's the most you would need to say for that question. Have you always lived here? A lot of people have trouble with this question and say, yes, I live here all the time when I am not at school. The question is not, do you always live here? That would be strange. No one always lives in one place. We go out of our home, we go on holiday, we go visit friends, we go for lunch. Have you always lived here means your whole life. So I say, no, I haven't always lived in this home. I actually only moved into this apartment 3 years ago. Before that, I have lived in many different places. Or maybe you say, yes, my family and I have always lived here since I was a little baby. So from the day you were born to today, that's where you stay almost every night, except when you go on holiday. That's the only time you would say, yes, I have always lived here, meaning since I was a baby, my parents picked me up, took me from the hospital, and that's the first home you had. So for most people, you wouldn't say that. You might say, no, I haven't always lived here. When I went to high school, my family moved to an apartment that was closer to my school. Okay, next question. How would you make your home better? Again, I'm not going to leave you too long. I think at that point you can just pause the video and say your answer. So for this question, this is a fairly simple question. I would like to I'd like to have an air conditioner in my bedroom, because right now there's only one in the lounge room or the living room. And so it gets very hot in summer, and often I don't sleep well because of the heat. Now, a common mistake here is because I love my home and there is nothing wrong about it. I don't want to change anything. Again, that's a terrible answer, because we just want to hear something. We want to hear some vocabulary. We want to hear that you can come up with an answer to this question. And no place is perfect. You might love your home. It might be a fantastic home, but does it have a swimming pool? Does it have a giant home cinema in one of the rooms? There's always something that could be improved about your home. Maybe you'd like to change the color of the walls. Maybe you'd like to make the window in your bedroom bigger because right now it's very small. Maybe you'd like a more comfortable bed, better heating in winter. There's so many things. This is a chance to show some good vocabulary. So please come up with an interesting answer that's true about your home and what you would like to change. Is your home a good place to have a party? The most common mistake here is, no, because my parents do not like me to have a party. Just because your parents don't want you to have a party here is not a reason that it's not a good place to have a party. Essentially, a party home is a big home. So generally, yes, my home, it would be a good place to have a party because it's really big and the lounge room is very, very big, and so I could have many friends visit. But unfortunately, I never have parties there because my parents don't allow it. That's fine. So normally the size would be the main thing, or, how much comfortable furniture and chairs you have for your friends to sit on. Final question we're going to look at here: which kind of shops are near your home? So again, this is a good vocabulary question. So have a think about that. What kind of shops are near your home? Okay, now again, when you're answering this question, we want a good grammar structure. Near my home, there are many different shops, although most of the places are along the street I live on are restaurants, but there are also some small convenience stores, some real estate agents, and some souvenir shops because I live in a tourist area. So there's shops selling, shells and other beach souvenirs. So again, we want to hear the vocabulary. What kind of shops are near your home? If you don't know the vocabulary for the places near your home, go and find out. Get your dictionary, go for a walk around your street, and come up with 3 or 4 different vocabulary words that you could put into that answer. And again, We can tell if you say there are many shops near my home, like there is a bakery and a grocer and a supermarket. That's not going to work because it doesn't feel real. We want you to say, around my home, there is a couple of chemists. There's lots of little convenience stores, which is common in China. And there's also a couple of cafes and restaurants. Now, I know cafes and restaurants are not shops, but we're just imagining you walking along the street near your home and telling the examiner what you can see. Okay. The next topic we're going to look at is your hometown. And again, there are many different possible questions they could ask you for this topic. We're just going to look at 5 of those possible topics. So first of all, where is your hometown? What's your hometown? A question like this. So again, I would say my hometown is Sydney, which is the largest city in Australia, and it's on the southeast coast of Australia. Now, if you're in the town that you're taking the IELTS exam, you could say that. Oh, this is my hometown. I come from Qingdao. If you are taking the test in Qingdao. If you're taking the test in Zhangzhou, Zhangzhou is my hometown. You don't need to say a lot of information. It's a basic, simple question. What don't you like about your hometown? Now, again, I don't care how wonderful your hometown is. There is always an answer to this. So have a think about that and maybe try an answer. What don't you like about your hometown? If it was me, I would say, well, the one problem with Sydney is that the transport and infrastructure isn't really catching up with the population growth. We really need more railway lines and some high-speed railways connecting Sydney to other cities, because getting from the city centre out of Sydney can take a very long time in the traffic. Is your hometown famous for anything? Again, if this was me, I'd say, well, of course, Sydney is probably the most famous city in Australia. We have the wonderful Sydney Harbour with the beautiful Opera House and the Sydney Harbour Bridge. So many people think of these things when they think of Sydney. And if you type in Sydney, you'll normally see photos of those 2 things on the internet. Now, for you, if you come from a really small hometown, it's perfectly okay just to say, now, to be honest, my hometown's really small and isn't really famous for anything. That's okay. The most common answer is, my hometown is famous for its food. I'm sorry, but for most cities in China, your hometown's not famous for its food. I mean, Sichuan is famous for its food. And again, laugh at my bad pronunciation. Maybe you could say Guangzhou is famous for its food. Maybe a few other places, but generally, unless there's a specific food, so for example, you might have the Rojia Mo, I believe that comes from Xi'an, I think, there's a food that's famous from my hometown called this. But generally, unless it's a very specific food, you can't just say my hometown is famous for its food. You need to say what food. And again, this is a vocabulary test. You can't just say the Chinese name. I mean, you can say the name. So you can say Rojia, which is kind of like a Chinese hamburger. It has some usually lamb and onion, which is cooked and put in between the bread. Now, you need to be able to describe that food. So again, this is a question which is testing the vocabulary. So I might say, again, Weihai is the Liaogong Island, the historical museum where the Sino-Japanese War was fought near here, and so the museum has many exhibits and artifacts related to that war. So artifacts, exhibition, these kind of words are related to the topic. Okay. And Jenny, if you're from a really big city, maybe just pick 1 or 2 things that it's famous for. You don't need to mention all the things it's famous for. Do most of your friends come from your hometown? This is a strange question. Again, they sometimes use this, but again, they change the questions regularly. So say you're a high school student. The answer is probably yes. So how would you answer that question if you're a high school student compared to, say, a university student or a working person? So for a high school student, you'd probably say, oh, yes, most of my friends do come from Weihai because I've lived there all of my life, and most of my friends come to the high school from their local area. Now, if you're at university and you've gone to a university outside of your hometown, maybe that answer's changed. You might say, well, a couple of years ago, I would say yes, but now I've been studying in Beijing for a few years. I'd say maybe half of my friends come from my hometown because of my old high school friends, but most of my other friends come from many different cities in China. Okay, so something like that. That's the kind of answer you'd be looking at for this question. Would you like to live in your hometown in the future? So have a think about that. Would you? The most common mistake here is to say, yes, I love my hometown and I want to live here forever. Or something like that. Now, the problem is you're taking the IELTS test. And you're probably taking the IELTS test because you want to leave and go to another country to study. So you should probably put some truth into your answer. Say, well, I would like to come back to my hometown when I return to China after my studies abroad because, there's a lot of good jobs in this area and I would like to be close to my family. But mention that. Mention you're going to go away for a while. Put that into your answer. It shows that you are thinking. It shows that you're not just giving a memorized answer. And at the same time, it's perfectly okay to say, well, I would maybe like to come back to my hometown when I'm much older because Weihai is a beautiful, clean city that's good for old people to live in. But probably that will be 20 or 30 years away because I want to live in a more exciting city with more opportunities in the next several years. So they're the kind of different answers you might have for that kind of question. Okay, also think about the grammar. Would. Yes, I would. No, I wouldn't. There. Okay, so we've got one more topic here. Now, before they do the topic, they're going to ask you the question like this. So, let's talk about what you do. Do you work or are you a student? Now, at this point, some people say, I am a student. And that's okay, but if you are a high school student, we need to know because we need to change the questions a little bit. So generally, if you work, you say, I work. I'm a nurse in the local hospital. If you're a student, you say, I'm a high school student or I'm a university student. You don't need to say more than that. In fact, don't say more than that because they just need to know, do they choose this question list or this question list? That's actually the same piece of paper. I just kind of did that. Anyway, so I'm a high school student. Okay, so you're a high school student. I need to change some of these questions. Oh, sorry, we're going to come to studies in a moment. First, let's look at what you do. What kind of work do you do? Maybe they will ask this question. If you have already said, they won't say it again. So what kind of work do you do? Oh, I'm an accountant. That's okay to say that. Why did you choose to study to become an accountant? Oh, I chose to become an accountant because this is a job that has there are many companies that need accountants, so it's very easy to find work. Okay, so think about that. What would you say for your job? Now, of course, every job is different, so there's no trick to that, The basic question, I'm an English teacher. I teach in a private English school. That's the most I would really say for the first part of the question. What kind of work do you do? Okay. What training did you receive to help you with this work? Well, before I became an English teacher, I studied a TEFL course on how to teach English, but I've also been studying English teaching lately at university. As well as that, I received some training from my manager in my first English teaching job. What about you? Did you get training at university? Or did you get training on the job? Or both? Or neither? Okay, so think about that. And that's what you would put into your answer that, oh, I received I learned about this at university. Or I didn't learn about this before my work because I studied something different, but I did receive some training in the first few weeks by my manager. So something like that. Do you see yourself doing this work in the future? So again, have a think about that. What would you say to this question? When you do think in the IELTS test, try not to take more than 2 seconds to think. It's okay to go, yes, yes, I do. But you're not going to go, that's way too long. 2 seconds would be the most you want to spend thinking about a question. Again, we see the do at the beginning of this question, so that's important for the grammar in our answer. Yes, I do, or no, I don't. So, yes, I do see myself working as a nurse for the rest of my life because I really love helping people. And even though it can be difficult and tiring and stressful at times, I feel that it's rewarding to know that I'm helping a lot of people feel more comfortable or get better. And again, that would be about the length of that answer, no longer than that one. Now, you see here a couple of times I have the word why, the question why there. Now, when you actually do the IELTS test, you do not want to be asked, hearing them say the word why. If they say the question why, it's because you haven't properly answered the question in the first part of your answer. So do you see yourself doing this work in the future? Yes, I do. Okay, that's a correct answer, but you should then add the explanation. You should not be waiting for them to ask you why. That's for people that get like low-level scores. If you're looking at this course, I'm assuming you want to get 6.5, 7 or higher. And for all of you, you need to be saying why when you answer that question. Okay. And if you don't see yourself doing this job, you might say not just why you don't want to do this job, but you might give a very brief introduction to what other kind of work you would like to do. In part 1, we're not going to answer that. We're not going to ask that if you don't tell us. So it might be good to hear from you about that. How difficult was it for you to get this job? Again, have a think about that. Generally, again, yeah, very difficult, a little bit difficult, not very difficult, or very easy. So which one was it for you? So I can't say about my current job because it's my own company, but in the past I would say, oh, this job was very easy for me to get because I had a lot of teaching experience and I actually just walked into the school in Beijing and gave them my resume, and they were very happy to have somebody in Beijing with a really good experience to come and work for their company, and they offered me a job straight away. Or maybe your family or friends helped you get the job. Okay, what other work would you like to do? Now, in this situation, they might not ask this question and this question together if you've already said it. Again, they have a choice of, they have some questions they're going to ask. They have different folders and different questions. So I might say, in the future, I would like to be a because. Okay, I don't think I need to give you an example for that one. You should be able to work that out yourself. Just have a think. What other work would you like to do? And please have a think. Don't just say, there is no other work I would like to do. I'm pretty happy with my job, but one day I would like to try being something like that. Okay, now finally, let's move on to your studies. Now, there's a few different questions. They might ask, what do you study? Or what is your major? Now, maybe in the first question, we'll say, what do you do? Do you work or are you a student? You've probably already said, I'm a university student or I'm a high school student. So at that point, they might not ask that question. They might say, okay, so what are you studying? Now, this kind of question can be answered by both high school and university students. So for high school students, we want to hear the vocabulary. As a high school student, I study many different subjects, including, do you have some ideas? Chinese, biology, chemistry, geography, English, that kind of vocabulary. Now, if you're a university student, you don't say, my major is marketing. because marketing is not the subject you're studying. The major is marketing. You would be studying different subjects as part of your marketing course. So you might say, oh, as a marketing major, I study many different subjects. For example, I study media and all the different kind of media that is used for marketing. I study marketing theory about the way people think is the best way to do marketing. I also study marketing technology and about all the way that we can create more creative advertisements using technology. So you might mention maybe 2 subjects that have some special vocabulary related to your subject. Are you happy with your major? Now, of course, this question would be changed for high school students, but for university students, what do you think? Are you happy with the choice you made? So you might say, well, I do enjoy some of the things, but I kind of wish I'd studied something different. And then you might say what you wish you had studied. Or you might say, oh yeah, I love this subject. I really look forward to working in marketing. I love the creative side of it, and I really enjoy a lot of my subjects. It's one of these kind of things there. Which university do you go to? Again, they might change that to which high school do you go to, but this is a fairly simple question. So I go to Shandong University at their Weihai campus. So if your university has different locations, we call them the campus. So the Weihai campus, the Jinan campus. Now, maybe your university only has 1 campus, then you don't need to say that. I go to Beijing Foreign Languages University. I think they might actually have 2 campuses, I'm not sure. Okay, what do you like about being a student? Now, for high school students, I might say nothing. It's terrible being a high school student in China. I think that's a perfectly okay answer. For university students, you might say you like the freedom, you like the fact that you have more responsibility, that you get to do your own research and come up with your own ideas for your assignments. Or maybe it's the fact that you get to hang out more with your friends than you did in high school. Something like that. Although maybe it's something about studying. Maybe you're studying a science subject and you love doing experiments in the laboratory. Okay, and the same thing for the opposite side here. For most students, there's probably 2 or 3 things you would talk about for this question. What do you think they are? Yep, exams, homework, and time. They're probably the most things that people say here. Oh, I've got too much homework, there's too many exams, I don't have enough free time. These are probably the main problems I've heard from students in the past, and it's perfectly okay to talk about one of those things. Just remember that in part 1, home, hometown, work, and studies, it doesn't matter too much. As long as you have good sentence answers that are focused on answering the question, you'll do well. They're about getting you relaxed. So don't stress too much about these questions. I think that's the last slide. Yes, it is. So, it says last slide. That's meant to say any questions. But I'm not recording the whole video again. I'll have to fix that up for the next one. So thank you very much again for your patience, and I hope you've learned something new and useful from these videos. Once again, contact us if you have any questions that you would like me to discuss in my video at the end of this course. Thank you very much, and I will see you in a few minutes. Well, depending when you stop watching this video. Thank you very much, and goodbye.